Here's something that might completely change the way you think about asking for a raise. Most women spend weeks preparing for the conversation. I think that's too late because the strongest raise conversations aren't built in the 2 weeks before you ask. They're built in the months before you ever think about asking. If you've ever wondered whether you're ready for a raise, this episode isn't about asking for more money. It's about helping leadership clearly recognize the value you've already created. And that changes everything.
Welcome to Career Growth for Working Women. This show is for women who are done waiting to be noticed and ready to be compensated for the value they already bring. I'm Shannon, a promotion and compensation coach, and I help women position themselves for real advancement, not by working harder, but by showing their value more strategically using what I call the 5% method. If you're ready for clarity, confidence, and career growth that actually pays off, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello, welcome back to the show. I've been thinking about a conversation I have all the time. Usually it starts the same way. A woman looks at me and says, Shannon, I think I'm ready to ask for a raise. My response is almost always the same. Tell me why. I'm not questioning whether she deserves one. I'm listening for the story she's telling herself. Most of the time, I hear some version of this. I've been here for 3 years. I've taken on so much more responsibility. I work really hard. I'm doing things that aren't even in my job description anymore. This might surprise you. Every one of those things may be completely true, and none of them answer the question leadership is actually trying to answer. For years, we have been taught that hard work naturally leads to more money. Hard work, stay loyal, go above and beyond. Eventually, someone will recognize your effort and reward you for it. Sometimes that happens. Many times, it doesn't. Not because your work isn't valuable, because leadership isn't making compensation decisions based on an effort alone. They're making decisions based on value. More specifically, business value. That's a very different conversation. And I find that also encouraging because business value can be understood. It can be communicated. It can be positioned. I've been studying timeless success principles lately, and one idea has really challenged my thinking. Knowledge becomes powerful when it's organized and applied. The more I thought about that, the more I realized the exact same thing is true in our careers. Most high performing women don't lack evidence, they lack organization. They've solved the problems, led projects, strengthened relationships, improved processes, mentored teammates, created efficiencies, protected revenue, saved time, built trust. The evidence, it's there. It's just scattered across hundreds of busy days. No one has ever shown them how to organize those moments into a story leadership can quickly understand. And I see this all the time. A woman has spent years creating incredible value. Then one day she decides she's ready to ask for a raise. She sits down to prepare, and suddenly her mind goes blank. Not because she hasn't accomplished enough, because she's trying to remember years of impact all at once. That's incredibly difficult. Not because the evidence doesn't exist, because it hasn't been organized. I remember coaching a client who came into one of our sessions convinced she had a strong case for a raise. She brought 2 full pages of notes, and she walked me through them. I noticed something. Every bullet described what she had done. Nothing described why it mattered. So I stopped her and I asked one question. What changed because of your work? She looked at me for a second. Then she smiled and she said, I've never thought about it that way. That one question completely changed our conversation. Instead of talking about managing projects, we talked about protecting revenue. Instead of talking about mentoring a new employee, we talked about helping someone become productive weeks sooner. Instead of talking about improving a process, we talked about saving the team hours every single month. Same accomplishments, different language. And that's when she realized something. She didn't need better accomplishments. She needed better language. I see that realization happen over and over and over again. Women assume they need another certification, another year of experience, another big project, another reason to deserve more. When often what they really need is a clearer way to communicate the value they've already created. Here's what I've learned. Leadership isn't asking how hard has she worked. Leadership is actually asking what business value has she created? How has the organization become stronger because she's here? What results would have been different if she had not been involved? Those are compensation questions because compensation follows value, and value has to be understood before it can be rewarded. That's why confidence comes from clarity. When you can clearly explain the value you've created, you stop hoping someone agrees you deserve a raise. You start sharing evidence, and evidence changes the conversation. Here's what I want you to remember. Working hard, it's admirable. Being dependable matters. Taking initiative is valuable. And those things by themselves don't answer the question, why should we increase this person's compensation? That's not because leadership doesn't appreciate hard work. It's because compensation is a business decision, and business decisions are built on evidence. The beautiful part, you probably have far more evidence than you realize. The opportunity now is learning how to organize it into a story leadership can easily recognize, communicate, and advocate for. And that's where everything begins. I think this is where many high achieving women unintentionally make their raise conversations harder than it needs to be. Because once they decide they're ready, they immediately start gathering proof. Emails, projects, performance reviews, compliments, metrics, and anything that they can find that supports their case. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage it. But here's what I'd love for you to do differently. Don't wait until you're preparing for the conversation. Start preparing while you're creating the value. It's a completely different mindset. And here's what I've noticed. The women who walk into compensation conversations with the most confidence usually aren't the women who have accomplished the most. They're the women who have been paying attention. They've been collecting evidence all year. Not because they knew exactly when they'd ask for a raise, because they've trained themselves to recognize the value they're creating while it's happening. And that changes everything. Instead of trying to remember 12 months of accomplishments, they're simply opening a document they've been building all along. I've started to encourage my clients to think like historians instead of detectives. A detective starts looking for evidence after something has happened. A historian, on the other hand, records important moments as they happen. Which one do you think walks into a compensation conversation feeling more prepared? The historian, right? Preparation creates clarity, and clarity creates confidence. That's one of the reasons I believe confidence isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you build, one clear example at a time, one documented win at a time, one leadership impact at a time. And I've noticed something else. When women start documenting their value consistently, something unexpected happens. They stop downplaying it, not because they've become more confident overnight, because they have proof. It's hard to argue with evidence. When you can look back and see the problems that you've solved, the relationships you've strengthened, the money you've saved, the risks you've prevented, the people you've developed, you stop wondering whether you've created enough value. You know you have. Now, the conversation becomes helping leadership understand it. Here's what I want you to remember. A raise conversation isn't about convincing someone you're worth more. It's about helping leadership clearly see the business value you've already created. And those are two different conversations. One feels emotional. The other feels strategic. And strategy is a much stronger place to lead from. And that's why I don't want you walking into a compensation conversation hoping your manager agrees with you. I want you to walk in prepared with examples, prepared with outcomes, prepared with leadership impact, prepared to connect your work to the goals that matter most to the organization. Because here's something I've learned after coaching so many incredible women. Leadership rarely argues with well-organized evidence. They may have questions, and they may have a budget constraint, and they may have timing considerations, but a conversation built on evidence is always stronger than a conversation built on effort alone. That's why I believe your preparation begins today. Because you're asking, not because you're asking for a raise tomorrow, but because every week gives you another opportunity to capture the value you're creating. One of the principles I've been studying lately reminds us that success rarely comes from one big moment. It comes from consistently preparing before the opportunity arrives. I see that principle play out in careers every day. The women who become the obvious choice aren't scrambling when opportunities appear. They're ready because they've been preparing all along. So before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one small promotional move this week. Start what I call your leadership impact journal. Nothing fancy, just one page or one note on your phone. It doesn't matter. And at the end of each week, answer these 3 questions. What did I accomplish? What changed because of it? And why did this matter to the business? 3 questions, 5 minutes, every Friday. Imagine what you'll have after 6 months. Not a list of tasks, but a story of the value you're consistently creating. And stories are what people remember. All right, one more final thought. Don't wait until raise season to start collecting evidence of your value. By then, you're relying on your memory. Start collecting it while you're living it, because the women who become the obvious choice don't prepare differently when opportunity arrive. They prepare differently every single week. And over time, that consistency becomes impossible to overlook. Okay, I'll talk to you next time.
If today's episode sparked something for you, a question, an idea, or a realization, don't ignore it. I offer promotion strategy calls where we walk through your current role, your goals, and how to position you for your next promotion or raise without burning out or overworking. You can book that call using the link in the description. And if this episode helped you, sharing it or leaving a quick review makes a bigger difference than you know. Until next time, keep showing your value clearly. You've earned it.